Nobody screamed when the recording hit the company chat. No dramatic gasps, no slammed doors. Just the sound of keyboards going still. And then, the way people looked at Mara Quinn, like she had been caught stealing oxygen. It started at 8:07 a.m., when the anonymous compliance inbox pushed a new file to leadership, an audio clip labeled Maraquin 4 Manipulation. The clip was 28 seconds long. Her voice, her cadence, even the tiny breath she took before difficult sentences. A perfect imitation of her saying, I can make the numbers say whatever they need to say. By 8:16 a.m., her calendar invitations began disappearing, one by one, like someone was erasing her life in real time. At 8:22 a.m., the CFO, Darius Klein, walked past her desk without eye contact, like she was a stain someone forgot to clean. And at 8:31 a.m., she understood the truth. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a design, a trap that didn't want her to quit. It wanted her to confess. The office didn't need proof, it needed a story. And someone had already written hers. At 6:12 a.m., Mara Quinn stood in front of her bathroom mirror and practiced the same expression she wore to funerals. Not grief, not fear, just a calm face that said, I am here, and I will not make this easy for you. She tied her hair back, tight enough to feel the pull. She liked the sensation. It reminded her she was still holding herself together. Outside, Chicago was gray and undecided. The kind of morning that didn't promise anything. Her phone buzzed once, then twice, then kept buzzing like a small animal trapped under glass. She didn't check it yet. She had learned something the hard way in corporate life. When a storm is coming, you don't run into the rain barefoot. At 6:49 a.m., she opened her inbox while standing at her kitchen counter. The first email subject line was innocent. Quick sync today. But the sender wasn't. It was Darius Klein, CFO. The kind of man who smiled like he had never lost. The kind of man who spoke softly because he liked making other people lean in. The email had no greeting, no warmth, just a line. Come to 31B at 9 a.m. Bring your audit notes. 31B was a glass conference room near the executive wing, where sunlight didn't reach and truth didn't survive. Mara Quinn stared at the message long enough for the coffee to cool. Then, she finally checked her notifications. Teams messages. Dozens. Most of them unread. Some of them already answered without her. Because people were talking around her now. Like she was a chair that suddenly became untrustworthy. She opened the first message from her colleague, Tessa. Are you okay? That one hurt more than the others. Because it didn't ask if it was true. It asked if she could survive it. At 7:18 a.m., Mara Quinn stepped into the elevator of Halcyon Financial, badge scanning with a cheerful beep that felt inappropriate. A man from marketing stood beside her. He used to tell her about his toddler's obsession with dinosaurs. Today, he pressed himself into the corner, like she had teeth. The elevator rose in silence. The kind of silence that isn't empty, just crowded with accusations. When the doors opened, the floor smelled like fresh carpet and expensive decisions. At 7:29 a.m., she reached her desk and saw the first physical evidence that something had shifted. Her stapler was gone. It sounds small. It is small, but it was hers, and someone had taken it as if to say, you don't own anything here anymore. Her monitor woke up. Her inbox refreshed again, and that's when she saw it. The message forwarded to half the company. Subject: audio evidence attached urgent. There was no sender name, just anonymous. She clicked the attachment. She listened. She heard her own voice. Clear, confident, casual. Her voice, saying the thing she would rather die than say. I can make the numbers say whatever they need to say. Then a tiny laugh. Not loud, not evil, just satisfied. It sounded like someone who knew she'd get away with it. It sounded like a version of her that would deserve punishment. Mara Quinn didn't move. She didn't slam her laptop shut. She didn't whisper, "This is not me," because she knew something worse than lies. She knew the truth about lies that sound like truth. People don't fight them with logic. They fight them with hunger. Hunger for scandal. Hunger for simplicity. Hunger for a villain. And she had been too quiet for too long. That made her the perfect villain. At 7:41 a.m., she replayed the clip with her eyes closed. Not because she wanted to torture herself, because she wanted to study the weapon. Most people heard the words. Mara Quinn listened for seams, compression artifacts, a breath that didn't belong, a rhythm too smooth. Something human voices do when they're real tiny imperfections that machines still struggle to mimic perfectly. The clip was nearly flawless. Nearly. She heard it on the third replay. A half-second pause between numbers and say. A pause that felt manufactured. A pause like someone cut and stitched. Her throat went dry. She didn't feel panic. She felt focus. Because there are two kinds of fear. The fear that makes you run, and the fear that makes you build a plan. At 7:56 a.m., her manager, Rhea Sanford, appeared by her desk like a shadow that had learned to wear heels. Rhea didn't sit, didn't ask permission, just placed her hand on the edge of Mara Quinn's desk as if claiming territory. "Tell me it's not real," Rhea said. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were already asking a different question. "If it is real, how far does it splash on me?" "It's not real," Mara Quinn said. Rhea nodded, too quickly, like she'd already decided what she needed to believe. Then she leaned closer. "Darius is calling a meeting," she whispered, as if the walls were listening. "At 9 a.m. Do not improvise. Do not get emotional." Mara Quinn looked up. "You think I would get emotional?" Rhea hesitated. Not long. Just long enough to reveal her real answer. Then she straightened and said, "Bring the audit notes," and left without another word. When Rhea walked away, Mara Quinn noticed something else. People were pretending not to stare, but their chairs angled slightly away from her desk, like her reputation had become a smell. At 8:07 a.m., the clip hit again, this time inside an email thread titled Q4 Integrity Review. Leadership only. But the recipient list had grown. Someone wanted maximum reach, maximum humiliation, maximum pressure. The office ran on two currencies, performance and perception. Performance could be audited. Perception could be engineered. And somebody had engineered hers into dust. At 8:12 a.m., a calendar notification vanished. Quarterly risk walkthrough. Deleted. Not rescheduled. Deleted like it never existed. At 8:16 a.m., another invite disappeared. Vendor controls meeting. Deleted. At 8:19 a.m., her access to a shared drive folder flickered and vanished. She tried to open the Q4 audit trail. A gray pop-up appeared. Access denied. Her pulse didn't spike. It dropped, because that meant the plan wasn't just to accuse her. It was to isolate her, to remove her ability to defend herself. In every office war, there's a moment when you realize you're not being argued with. You're being erased. At 8:22 a.m., Darius Klein walked by her desk. He didn't stop. He didn't glance. He didn't offer the courtesy of pretending this was awkward. He treated her like the future he was about to dispose of. But as he passed, she noticed something. He was holding a paper coffee cup in his left hand. The logo faced outward, perfectly aligned. A small thing. A small, telling thing. Darius always displayed brands like trophies. And today, the trophy said, "I'm calm. I'm in control. I'm not the one being hunted." At 8:31 a.m., Mara Quinn stood and walked to the restroom, not because she needed it, but because she needed a place with a locked door. Inside a stall, she opened the audio file again. Then she did something most people wouldn't think to do. She checked the metadata. The file had been scrubbed. No author, no device model, no timestamp trail. Whoever made it knew what they were doing. But scrubbing metadata doesn't change one thing. The sound of a room. Every room has a fingerprint, air conditioning, hum, electrical buzz, tiny echoes. She listened again, quiet as a thief. And she heard it, a faint, steady hiss behind the voice. Not the office HVAC. Not her home. Not a coffee shop. It was smoother. More uniform. Like a recording done in a controlled studio environment. Like a podcast booth. Her stomach tightened. Halcyon had a podcast booth. Used for investor PR. Locked behind the brand team's access. She exhaled slowly. Not relief. Not rage. Just the cold clarity of a map forming in her mind. At 8:44 a.m., she returned to her desk. Tessa was waiting. Tessa's eyes were wide, but her voice tried to sound normal. "Hey," Tessa said, like they were talking about weekend plans. People are saying you know. Mara Quinn held her gaze. People are saying a lot. Tessa swallowed. I listened to it. I know. It sounds like you. I know, Mara Quinn said again. And this time the words landed like steel. Tessa lowered her voice. Darius is telling everyone compliance will handle it. Mara Quinn nodded once. Compliance. The company's favorite euphemism for execution. Then Tessa hesitated. I'm sorry, she whispered. If you need me to. To what? To defend her? To testify? To pick a side? People love to offer help when help is cheap. Mara Quinn softened her tone without softening her boundaries. Just don't repeat things you can't verify, she said. Tessa blinked. That's it? That's everything, Mara Quinn replied. Tessa left looking confused. Confused that Mara Quinn wasn't begging. Confused that she wasn't explaining. But Mara Quinn had learned something growing up with a mother who worked 2 jobs and still smiled like she had a secret. When the room wants you to panic, calm is a weapon. At 8:53 a.m., Mara Quinn opened a blank document and wrote one line. How do I prove a voice isn't mine? Then she wrote a second line. Who benefits? Then a third. Who has access? The answers arrived like footsteps in a hallway. Benefit. Darius. Access. Brand team. Exec wing. Compliance. Motive. She had been auditing Q4 revenue recognition. Something that touched Darius's bonus like a live wire. Last week, she had asked for supporting documentation on a set of vendor contracts. Darius had smiled at her in a meeting and said, You're thorough, Mara. I love that. But his eyes had said, Stop. At 9 a.m., Mara Quinn stepped into conference room 31B, and the glass door closed behind her with a gentle click that sounded like a lock. Darius sat at the head of the table, hands folded, posture relaxed. Rhea sat to his right, eyes down. Legal was there. Compliance was there. HR was there, pretending to be human. On the screen behind Darius was a paused waveform, blue peaks and valleys, like a heart monitor for someone who didn't deserve to live. Darius smiled at her. Not friendly. Not cruel. Just inevitable. Good morning, Mara Quinn, he said. Let's talk about the audio. She didn't sit right away. She placed her folder on the table. Then she looked at every face in the room, one at a time, like she was memorizing witnesses. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. That recording is fabricated, Mara Quinn said. And whoever made it wants you to move fast, before you think. Darius leaned back, as if enjoying a show. Fabricated, he repeated. That's a strong claim. It needs to be, Mara Quinn replied. Because what you're doing is stronger. A tiny silence followed. The kind that happens when someone says the truth out loud in a room built to bury it. Darius clicked a remote. The audio played again. Her voice filled the room like smoke. And she watched their eyes. Not for sympathy, for belief. When it ended, Darius folded his hands again. Mara Quinn, he said, gently. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one. She nodded once. Yes, she said. And the simplest explanation is that someone here needed me gone. Rhea looked up sharply. Legal's pen paused. Darius's smile didn't change. But something in his gaze tightened, like a thread pulled too hard. At 9:07 a.m., he spoke again, still calm. Are you accusing someone? I'm stating a pattern, Mara Quinn said. One that I can prove, if you let me access the audit trail you just revoked. Darius tilted his head. And if we don't? Then you're not investigating, Mara Quinn said. You're concluding. A longer silence. HR cleared her throat like she was trying to become useful. Compliance said, We'll need your devices. Mara Quinn slid her phone across the table. Then her laptop. Not because she trusted them. Because she knew something they didn't. A clean person doesn't fear a search. A trapped person does. She looked straight at Darius. Take them, she said. And while you're at it, preserve the security logs for the PR podcast booth. For the first time, Darius blinked like a human. Just once. But Mara Quinn caught it. Like catching a liar when their mask slips for a heartbeat. Darius smiled again, slower now. Interesting, he said. Why that booth? Because the room tone in the recording matches a controlled environment, Mara Quinn said. And because the file was scrubbed by someone who knows what metadata is, Legal leaned forward slightly. Compliance glanced at Darius. Darius lifted a hand, as if to soothe everyone. "Let's not spiral," he said. "We're here for facts." Mara Quinn's eyes didn't leave him. "I am," she said. "That's why I'm not confused." At 9:18 a.m., Darius ended the meeting with the same calm he began it with. "Go home, Mara," he said. "We'll contact you." The sentence sounded polite, but it meant, leave the building, leave your allies, leave your access, leave your fight. She stood, picked up nothing. Because they had taken her devices? Then she looked at the waveform still frozen on the screen. A false heartbeat. A manufactured life. She faced the room. "If I wanted to manipulate numbers," Mara Quinn said, "I wouldn't record myself admitting it." Darius chuckled softly, like she'd made a joke, but her voice stayed flat. "I'm not asking you to believe me," she continued. "I'm warning you. Whoever made that recording is confident you won't check." She reached the door, then paused, one hand on the handle. "And Darius," Mara Quinn added, "confidence is only impressive until it's wrong." She walked out, and the glass door clicked shut behind her again. Gentle, clean, like a blade being put away. When a lie sounds perfect, don't panic. Listen closely, perfection is often the first clue it was manufactured. At 9:27 a.m., Mara Quinn walked out of conference room 31B with nothing in her hands. No laptop, no phone, no badge dignity. Just a thin folder she'd brought as a courtesy, like people still respected paper. The hallway felt wider than it should have. Because space changes when everyone is avoiding you. The receptionist looked up and then looked away, too fast. A reflex, like turning from a car crash so you don't have to admit you saw it. Mara Quinn kept walking. Not because she was brave. Because stopping would make her look like she needed permission to exist. At 9:34 a.m., she reached her desk and found a security guard standing there with the stillness of a man trained to be polite while removing someone's humanity. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I'm supposed to escort you." "Of course you are," Mara Quinn replied. Her chair was pushed in, perfectly aligned, like someone had already cleaned her out mentally. The guard didn't touch her belongings. He didn't have to. Because the real message wasn't physical. The real message was procedural. You don't have to punch someone in a corporate building. You can just place them inside a process that has no oxygen. At 9:41 a.m., the elevator doors closed, and the guard stood 2 feet away like an awkward bodyguard for a person who wasn't famous. As the building dropped away floor by floor, Mara Quinn stared at the tiny security camera in the corner. She didn't hate it. She studied it. Because cameras weren't just tools. They were witnesses. And witnesses were the only thing that mattered now. At 9:48 a.m., she stepped into the lobby and felt something she hadn't expected. Not relief. Not despair. Hunger. The kind of hunger you feel when you realize the rules have already been broken, which means you are allowed to stop playing nice. Outside, the cold hit her face like a slap that told the truth. Her wallet still had her personal credit card, her driver's license, and a key fob to her apartment. That was enough. They could lock her out of the building. They couldn't lock her out of her mind. At 10:06 a.m., Mara Quinn sat in her car and finally let herself check the only device she still had, an old backup phone she kept in the glove compartment for emergencies. It was a cheap model, no company profile, no MDM tracking. She'd bought it after watching a coworker get fired and immediately lose access to their child's daycare check-in app because it was tied to corporate login. Corporate life taught you strange paranoia. This backup phone wasn't paranoia. It was insurance. The screen loaded slowly, and then the messages came in like a flood. "Tessa. They took your stuff? Are you okay? Ria. Do not contact anyone inside Halcyon until legal instructs you." A former colleague from Risk. Heard the clip. Brutal. "Sorry. An unknown number. You should resign before this gets worse." That last one sat in her chest like a coin dropped into a drain. Not because it scared her. Because it sounded rehearsed. Mara Quinn read it again. No name. No signature. Just pressure. She didn't reply. She copied the number into her notes. Then she opened her personal email and searched one phrase. PR podcast booth schedule. Nothing. Of course. They'd already tightened their grip. So she did what she always did when information got hidden. She looked for the humans around it. At 10:21 a.m., she texted the only person at Halcyon who didn't care about popularity. Not Tessa. Not Rhea. Someone older. Quieter. A man from IT security who'd once fixed her VPN at 11:43 p.m. without complaining. His name was Elliot Crane. She wrote one line. Hey, Elliot Crane. Small emergency. Are you free to talk off-network? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. The hesitation of a good man, realizing the room is on fire. Finally a reply. Give me 10. Do not call me. I'll call you. At 10:29 a.m., Mara Quinn let her head fall back against the seat. Her breathing stayed steady. But her mind was already mapping the building like a crime scene. Podcast booth access logs. Badge swipes. Door camera footage. Brand team permissions. Audio processing software licenses. She didn't need to catch everyone. She just needed one thread. Because a lie is like a sweater. Pull the right thread. And the whole thing collapses in public. At 10:37 a.m., her backup phone rang. No caller ID. She answered anyway. Say your name, Mara Quinn said. A pause. Then a voice she recognized, soft and tired. Elliot Crane. She exhaled once. Quiet. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Elliot Crane said. You're in a bad position. I know, Mara Quinn replied. That's why I'm calling the only person who knows how bad positions get created. Another pause. And she could hear the faint hum of server rooms behind him. Okay, he said. Talk. Podcast booth, Mara Quinn said. I need to know who used it recently. You can't ask me that. I'm not asking, Mara Quinn said. I'm telling you what's about to matter. He sighed. You think the audio was recorded in there? I think it was built in there, Mara Quinn replied. And I think someone scrubbed the file. That's not marketing level skill. That's someone who knows audits. Silence again. Then, Elliot Crane spoke, more quietly. The booth is on a separate access list, he said. Brand, IR, and exec. And who manages the access list? Mara Quinn asked. Brand ops, he said. Name. He hesitated. Sloan Mercer. The name landed like a cold drop of water. Sloan Mercer. Director of Brand Operations. A woman with perfect hair and perfect grammar, who laughed at leadership jokes half a beat before everyone else. She was close to Darius. Too close. And she'd never liked Mara Quinn, not openly. Just in the way she never invited her to meetings, never replied to emails, never used her name when she spoke. A social erasure campaign. Now maybe, a professional one. Mara Quinn kept her voice neutral. Okay, she said. Next question. Is there a log for who entered the booth? Yes, Elliot Crane said. Badge swipes. Camera in the hallway. Not inside. That's enough, Mara Quinn said. He didn't respond. Like he was weighing his own life against hers. Finally, he said, Mara, if they took your laptop and phone, they're building a case. Fast. I know, she said. And if I help you, Elliot Crane continued, they'll bury me. You don't have to help me, Mara Quinn replied. You just have to not help them. A small laugh. Bitter. You're good, he said. I'm tired, she corrected. Different thing. At 10:52 a.m., Elliot Crane said, Listen, I can't send you anything directly, but I can tell you where to look. Tell me. There's an internal ticketing system mirror, he said. Old, forgotten, not tied to SSO. It was used during the migration. Where? Mara Quinn asked. He gave her a URL fragment and a login format. Nothing illegal, nothing hacky. Just a neglected door no one bothered to lock because everyone forgot it existed. If your account still works, he said, you might see access requests, approvals, timestamps. And if my account doesn't work, then you're blind, Elliot Crane replied. Flat. And they win. He paused. Then he added, quietly, Also, I checked one thing I'm allowed to check. Mara Quinn didn't speak. She waited. The audio file, Elliot Crane said. It entered our environment from an external upload at 7:58 a.m. Her heart didn't race. It dropped into a colder place. Before the meeting, she whispered. Yes, he said. and it was uploaded by a generic service account. A bot? Essentially, that was the point. No human fingerprint. No blame. Just damage. Mara Quinn stared through her windshield at pedestrians crossing the street, living normal lives. She wanted to hate them for it. She didn't. She wanted to borrow their innocence for 1 hour. She couldn't. Who created the service account? She asked. I can't see that without leaving a trail, Elliot Crane said. Okay, she replied. Then we leave no trail. He made a small sound, like a warning. Be careful with that sentence. At 11:07 a.m., the call ended. And Mara Quinn sat alone with the first real piece of structure. A name. Sloan Mercer. A tool. The forgotten ticket mirror. A timestamp. Set. 58 a.m. And a pattern that was no longer theory. If this was a deepfake, it meant someone had the resources to manufacture her voice, which meant someone had access to samples. Hours of them. She'd presented in meetings, recorded trainings, quarterly town halls. If Halcyon had ever recorded a session with her speaking, her voice was already inside their files. Corporate culture didn't just track performance, it stored people. At 11:26 a.m., Mara Quinn drove to the only place she could think clearly. Not her apartment, not a friend's couch, a public library, because libraries held one thing, offices feared. Quiet space with no agenda. She found a corner seat with an outlet, opened the forgotten system link, typed her credentials, and held her breath like a swimmer. The page loaded. Old interface, ugly fonts, outdated logo. But it opened. A list of ticket categories. Facilities. Brand ops. Security access. She clicked brand ops. Search bar. She typed one phrase. Podcast booth access. Results appeared. Not many, but enough. Her eyes narrowed as she read. A ticket. At 6:43 p.m. the previous night. Request. Temporary access to PR booth corridor for audio capture urgent. Requester. Sloan Mercer. Approver. Darius's executive assistant. Notes. For executive project. Her fingers went cold. She clicked another ticket. 2 weeks ago. Export of town hall recordings for content repurposing. Requester. Sloan Mercer. Notes. Need clean voice samples. She sat still. Clean voice samples. That phrase was a knife, because it wasn't a normal brand request. Brand didn't ask for clean voice samples. Voice samples weren't a brand asset. They were a weapon. At 11:49 a.m., Mara Quinn copied the ticket IDs into her notes. She didn't screenshot. She didn't download. Because she knew how corporate traps worked. They watched for panic behavior. They watched for sloppy behavior. She simply wrote it down like a woman building a case file. One clean fact at a time. Then her backup phone buzzed again. Tessa. I just heard something, Tessa wrote. They're saying you might be escorted out permanently. Like terminated. Mara Quinn stared at the message. Not because it hurt. Because it clarified. The goal wasn't just to stain her. It was to remove her before she could finish auditing Q4. She wrote back. Don't talk about this on Teams. Meet me offsite after work. Tessa replied. Where? Mara Quinn typed a location, then paused, then deleted it. Because what she needed next wasn't gossip. It was leverage. And leverage required one thing. A person inside the building willing to touch the wire. At 12:06 p.m., Mara Quinn looked at the ticket again. Approver. Darius's executive assistant. Her name was Lena Hart, a quiet woman who scheduled power like a priest, schedules confession. If Lena Hart approved access, she knew something. Maybe not the whole plan, but enough to know it existed. And most people, when confronted with a plan they helped enable, want one thing, a way to pretend they didn't. That was the opening. At 12:19 p.m., Mara Quinn wrote a single sentence on paper, as if she were preparing a prayer. I don't need you to betray anyone. I need you to correct the record. Then she folded the paper and slipped it into her coat pocket. Because she wasn't going to win this by shouting. She was going to win it by making the right person afraid of being left holding the knife. As she stood to leave, she felt the first hint of something else. Not confidence. Not victory. But the start of direction. A lie had been planted. Now she had the place, the gardener, and the receipt. And when the truth finally arrived, it wouldn't arrive softly. It would arrive like a headline. Being locked out doesn't mean you're powerless. It means the game has moved from noise to strategy. At 2:14 p.m., Mara Quinn stood across the street from Halcyon Financial and watched people walk in and out like the building still believed in routine. Glass doors opened. Glass doors closed. Nothing on the outside suggested a quiet execution was underway. That was always the lie of corporate buildings. They looked neutral. They weren't. Mara Quinn checked her watch once, then slipped her phone back into her coat. She wasn't going inside. Not yet. Right now, she needed someone who never raised their voice, never took credit, and never forgot a detail. Someone who didn't hold power, but scheduled it. At 2:21 p.m., Mara Quinn walked into a small cafe 2 blocks away, the kind executives used because the coffee was mediocre and the conversations were private. She chose a corner table with her back to the wall, ordered black coffee she wouldn't finish, and waited. At 2:29 p.m., the door opened again. Lena Hart stepped inside. She wore the same neutral blazer she always wore at work, gray, unremarkable, intentional. Her hair was pulled back tight, like a woman who never let anything fall out of place, including herself. She scanned the room once, spotted Mara Quinn, and hesitated. Just a fraction? Enough. Then she walked over. "Hi, Mara," Lena Hart said, voice polite. "Careful. You said this was urgent." "It is," Mara Quinn replied. "Thank you for coming." Lena sat, placing her bag on the chair beside her like a shield. They didn't touch. They didn't smile. This wasn't a reunion. It was a negotiation. At 2:32 p.m., the barista called out an order, and the sound filled the space between them. Then silence again. Finally, Lena Hart spoke. "I'm not supposed to talk to you," she said. "I know," Mara Quinn replied. "That's why you're here." Lena's jaw tightened. "I approved a lot of things," she said. "That's my job." "Yes," Mara Quinn said calmly. "You approve. You don't create." Lena's eyes flicked up. "Then you know what I'm asking you," Mara Quinn continued. "I'm not accusing you of making anything. I'm asking you if you understood what you approved." Lena didn't answer right away. She reached for her coffee, took a sip, burned her tongue slightly. Mara Quinn noticed. People who rushed never burned themselves. People who were rattled did. At 2:36 p.m., Lena Hart set the cup down. "I was told it was for an executive project," she said. "Brand content. Investor-facing." "And the phrase, clean voice samples?" Mara Quinn asked gently. Lena inhaled, then exhaled through her nose, slow. "That language wasn't mine," she said. "It was pre-filled." "By who?" Lena didn't answer. She looked past Mara Quinn, through the cafe window, at people who didn't matter. "Lena Hart," Mara Quinn said quietly. "Right now, you're standing between two futures." Lena looked back at her. One eyebrow lifted slightly. The first hint of emotion. "Explain." "In one future," Mara Quinn said, "this goes away quietly. I'm terminated. The recording becomes unfortunate, but credible. And months from now, when regulators ask how this happened, your name appears on an approval log." Lena's fingers curled around the cup. "In the other future," Mara Quinn continued, "you help me correct the record. You don't blame anyone. You don't accuse anyone. You simply explain what you were told and what you were not told." "That would still ruin me," Lena Hart said. "No," Mara Quinn replied. "It would separate you." Lena frowned. "From what?" "From intent." The word hung between them. Intent was everything. Mistakes were forgivable. Intent was fatal. At 2:41 p.m., Lena Hart leaned back in her chair. "You're very calm," she said. "For someone about to lose everything." Mara Quinn nodded. "That's because I already lost it." At 9:18 a.m., Lena swallowed. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "3 things," Mara Quinn said. "And none of them involve betraying anyone." Lena gave a humorless smile. "That's hard to believe." "First," Mara Quinn said, "I want you to write down exactly who asked you to approve access to the podcast booth corridor." Lena stiffened. "Second," Mara Quinn continued, "I want you to confirm whether you were told my name would be used in any audio asset." Lena's eyes dropped to the table. "Third," Mara Quinn finished, "I want you to save a copy of the approval confirmation email. Not forward it, Not share it. Just keep it. Lena looked up sharply. You're building a record, she said. Yes, Mara Quinn replied. So are they. Silence stretched. Then Lena Hart spoke, very softly. I was told it was hypothetical, she said. A scenario for crisis prep. Crisis prep. The phrase landed heavy. And my name? Mara Quinn asked. Lena closed her eyes. Just for a second. I wasn't told, she said. That was it. Not innocence, but distance. Enough distance to survive. At 2:48 p.m., Lena Hart reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. She didn't tear out a page. She wrote slowly, deliberately. Names, times, requests. When she finished, she folded the notebook shut and slid it back into her bag. I can't give this to you, she said. I don't want it, Mara Quinn replied. Lena studied her, then nodded once. And the email, Lena added. I'll keep it. At 2. And in Pediset, p.m. Lena stood. So what happens now? She asked. Mara Quinn met her gaze. Now, she said, you go back to work and do exactly what you always do. Which is? Schedule power, Mara Quinn said. But this time, schedule it where it can be seen. Lena hesitated. Then she left without another word. At 3:02 p.m., Mara Quinn sat alone again, coffee untouched. Her phone buzzed. A new message. From Elliot Crane. For your information, Brand Ops just requested extended booth access for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. They weren't done. They were doubling down. She typed back. Do nothing, and log everything. Then she leaned back and allowed herself one small, private smile. Because doubling down was what people did when they thought they were winning. And that made them sloppy. At 3:18 p.m., Mara Quinn opened her notes and wrote one sentence in bold. They think I'm gone. Then another. Tomorrow, I let them prove it. The most dangerous people aren't loud. They're the ones who approve things quietly and never appear in headlines. At 6:11 a.m., Mara Quinn woke up before the city remembered it had problems. The room was still dark. The kind of dark that makes decisions feel heavier. She didn't reach for her phone right away. She reached for clarity. Because today wasn't about reacting. Today was about inviting someone to make a mistake. Mara Quinn sat up, feet on the floor, and let the plan run through her head one last time. Not the fantasy version. The real one. The one where things could still go wrong. If they took the bait, they'd reveal the pipeline. If they didn't, she'd still learn who was nervous enough to check. Either way, she would no longer be invisible. At 6:24 a.m., Mara Quinn typed a single email on her backup phone. She addressed it carefully. Not to leadership. Not to legal. To a mid-level distribution list. The kind people read without assuming it's important. Subject line. Personal clarification. Body. I've been advised not to communicate, but I won't let silence speak for me. The audio circulating is not authentic. I'm cooperating fully. If you hear anything else attributed to me, please verify before repeating it. No anger. No accusation. No defense. Just presence. She sent it. Then she waited. Because bait only works if it looks harmless. At 6:41 a.m., her phone buzzed. Not a reply. A system notification. Her email had been forwarded. Twice. Then 5 times. Then more. She didn't need names yet. She needed velocity. At 6:58 a.m., Mara Quinn opened her notes and wrote, Watch who panics. Because panic reveals hierarchy faster than any org chart. At 7:12 a.m., a second message appeared. From an internal alias she didn't recognize. Please stop escalating this. You are making things worse. She read it twice. Then smiled. Because people who are confident don't ask you to stop. They ignore you. At 7:18 a.m., Mara Quinn received a call. Unknown number. She let it ring once. Twice. Then answered. Hello, she said. A woman's voice came through, smooth but strained. Hi, Mara. This is Sloan Mercer. There it was. Not through HR. Not through legal. Direct. Too direct. Mara Quinn kept her voice neutral. Hi, Sloan. I saw your email, Sloan Mercer said quickly. I think it's unhelpful. That wasn't the question, Mara Quinn replied. A pause. Then Sloan exhaled. You're putting people in an uncomfortable position. Am I? Mara Quinn asked. Or am I reminding them they have one? Another pause. Longer. Then, Sloane shifted tone. Measured. Managerial. I just want to help, she said. That was the lie. Because help doesn't arrive with pressure. At 7:23 a.m., Mara Quinn said, If you want to help, tell me why Brand Ops requested extended booth access this morning. Silence. Not confusion. Calculation. How do you know about that? Sloane Mercer asked. I know a lot of things, Mara Quinn replied. That's why this is happening. The line went quiet. Then Sloane spoke again, slower now. We're cleaning up, she said, making sure nothing else like this happens. By recreating it? Mara Quinn asked. No, Sloane snapped. Then corrected herself. By testing safeguards. Testing. Again. The word everyone hides behind. At 7:27 a.m., Mara Quinn leaned back against the kitchen counter. Here's the problem, Sloane, she said calmly. Every test leaves a trail. And every trail has a start. You're implying something dangerous, Sloane Mercer said. No, Mara Quinn replied. I'm implying something inevitable. Another silence. Then Sloane lowered her voice. Let me talk to Darius, she said. We can make this quieter, quieter, not truer. That was the tell. At 7:31 a.m., Mara Quinn said, I don't need quiet. I need accuracy. You don't understand how this works, Sloane Mercer replied. I do, Mara Quinn said. You just forgot I was watching. The call ended. Not politely. Abruptly. Like someone who realized they'd already said too much. At 7:38 a.m., Mara Quinn opened her messages. A new text from Elliot Crane. They moved fast. Booth access expanded. Temporary audio sandbox spun up. At 7:34 a.m., her pulse stayed steady. This was it. The bait had been swallowed. At 7:46 a.m., Mara Quinn did something counterintuitive. She leaked another audio file, but not publicly, privately. She sent it to a single person. Someone known for gossip. Someone who always repeated things, accidentally. The audio was short. 12 seconds. Her voice again. Saying something vague. Something harmless. Something plausible. It wasn't real, but it was good enough to test their reflexes. If they believed they controlled the pipeline, they would rush to neutralize it. And in doing so, they would expose how. At 8:02 a.m., Mara Quinn got confirmation. The file was accessed. Not by legal. Not by HR. By Brand Ops. Specifically, a sandbox environment tied to the PR booth. At 8:09 a.m., Elliot Crane sent another message. They're processing it. Same chain, same tools. Same fingerprints. Mara Quinn closed her eyes for a moment. Not relief. Recognition. At 8:16 a.m., an internal message went out from leadership. Subject. Reminder. Do not share unverified content. They were scrambling. Scrambling always left marks. At 8:21 a.m., Mara Quinn forwarded nothing. She didn't respond. She let the system eat itself. Because systems panic when they don't know where the leak is. At 8:34 a.m., her phone rang again. This time, she recognized the number. It was Lena Hart. Mara Quinn answered. You were right, Lena Hart said quietly. They're trying to bury something. Are you okay? Mara Quinn asked. A pause. I don't know, Lena admitted. But I kept the email. That's enough, Mara Quinn said. No, Lena Hart replied. It's not. Because now they're asking questions. About what? About who talked to you. There it was. The cost. At 8:41 a.m., Mara Quinn spoke carefully. Listen to me. You didn't talk to me. You approved a request. That's all. Lena exhaled shakily. They're scared, she said. Yes, Mara Quinn replied. And scared people rush. At 8:53 a.m., Mara Quinn opened a new document and titled it Timeline. She wrote, at 6:43 p.m., booth access requested. At 7:58 a.m., audio uploaded. At 7:34 a.m. today, sandbox spun up. At 8:02 a.m., fake audio accessed. Patterns weren't opinions. They were facts arranged in order. And order was lethal. At 9:01 a.m., Mara Quinn received one final message. From Darius's executive assistant, please call me when you can. She didn't respond. Not yet. Because when powerful people ask you to call, it means they've run out of other moves. Mara Quinn stood by the window and watched the city wake fully. She didn't feel victorious. She felt ready. Because the trap wasn't to catch them lying. The trap was to make them prove how they lie. And tomorrow would be public. When someone is truly innocent, they wait. When someone is guilty, they rush to control the narrative. At 9:43 a.m., Mara Quinn sat alone in her apartment, laptop closed, hands folded, waiting for the call she hadn't returned. She could have called back sooner. She didn't. Power rarely speaks first when it thinks silence will do the work for it. But when silence fails, power starts dialing. At 9:51 a.m., her backup phone rang. This time, it wasn't an assistant. It was Darius. She answered on the second ring. Mara Quinn, Darius Klein said, voice smooth, almost warm. Thank you for taking the call. I didn't, Mara Quinn replied. You called me. A small pause, then a soft chuckle. Fair enough, Darius said. I want to resolve this. Privately. There it was, the oldest trick in the building. Resolve. Never. Investigate. Privately. Never. Correct. I'm already cooperating, Mara Quinn said. If you want to resolve it, schedule a formal review. Another pause. Longer this time. At 9:54 a.m., Darius's tone shifted. We're convening compliance, legal, and HR at 11:30 a.m., he said. You'll be invited. Invite everyone who touched this, Mara Quinn replied. Or, don't invite me. Silence. Then, you drive a hard bargain. No, Mara Quinn said calmly. I just don't bargain with liars. The line went dead. She placed the phone face down. Her breathing stayed even. Because she knew something Darius didn't. This wasn't his meeting anymore. At 11:12 a.m., Mara Quinn arrived at Halcyon Financial for the first time since the escort. No badge. No access. Just a visitor sticker that read, Mara Q. In thin black ink, like the building had already shortened her story. The guard didn't look at her twice. But people inside did. Eyes followed her. Not hostile. Curious. Curiosity was new. Curiosity meant the narrative had cracked. At 11:24 a.m., she stood outside conference room 31B again. Same glass. Same table. Different weight. Through the glass, she could see them gathering. Legal. Compliance. 2R. Sloan Mercer standing, arms crossed too tightly. Lena Hart seated, notebook closed, posture rigid. And at the head of the table, Darius. Smiling. Like a man who still believed charm could erase timestamps. At 11:30 a.m., the door opened. Come in, Darius said. Mara Quinn stepped inside. She didn't sit immediately. She placed a single sheet of paper on the table. Then she sat. The room settled. Legal began. Voice procedural. This is a fact-finding discussion, she said. Not a disciplinary action. Mara Quinn nodded. Good, she said. Then facts should be welcome. Darius interlaced his fingers. Let's start with the audio, he said. You claim it's fabricated. I don't claim, Mara Quinn replied. I mapped it. Sloan shifted. Just slightly. Enough. At 11:34 a.m., Mara Quinn slid the paper forward. A clean timeline. No adjectives. No accusations. Just times. At 6:43 p.m., Mara Quinn said, voice steady. Temporary access to the PR podcast booth corridor was approved. Lena's eyes stayed forward. Sloane's jaw tightened. At 7:58 a.m., Mara Quinn continued. An audio file entered Halcyon's environment through an external upload using a generic service account. Legal leaned in. At 7:34 a.m. yesterday, Mara Quinn said, Brand Ops requested expanded booth access and spun up an audio sandbox. Sloan inhaled sharply. Darius raised a hand. Mara, he said gently. You're speculating. No, Mara Quinn replied. I'm sequencing. She turned slightly toward Sloan. Would you like to explain why Brand Ops needed clean voice samples 2 weeks before this audio appeared? The room went still. Sloan opened her mouth, closed it, then spoke. That language was standard, Sloan Mercer said. For content repurposing. Content repurposing of whom? Mara Quinn asked. Sloane's eyes flicked to Darius. Then back. Multiple executives, she said. Name one, Mara Quinn said. A beat. Anyone else whose voice was used in a disciplinary context? Mara Quinn added. Sloane didn't answer. At 11:41 a.m., legal cleared her throat. Let's stay focused, she said. Mara, do you have evidence the audio was processed internally? Yes, Mara Quinn said. I do. She didn't pull out a device. She didn't play a clip. She didn't need spectacle. Yesterday morning, Mara Quinn said. A second audio file unrelated to me was accessed through the same sandbox, by the same toolchain. Darius frowned. That's impossible, he said. We issued a freeze. You issued a memo, Mara Quinn replied. The system didn't receive it until 8:16 a.m. Silence fell hard. Compliance looked at legal. Legal looked at IT. It looked down. At 11:45 a.m., Lena Hart spoke for the first time. I approved access under the understanding it was hypothetical, she said quietly. No names, no targets. Darius turned toward her. Lena, she continued. I was not informed a real employee's voice would be used. Her voice didn't shake. That mattered. The room recalibrated around her, because separation had just become visible. Mistake versus intent. At 11:49 a.m., Mara Quinn leaned forward. One more fact, she said. If I wanted to manipulate numbers, I wouldn't record myself admitting it. And if I were careless enough to do so, I wouldn't store the recording inside company infrastructure. Darius smiled thinly. You're very confident. Yes, Mara Quinn said. Because confidence is what people borrow when truth hasn't arrived yet. The smile faltered. Just a little. At 11:52 a.m., compliance spoke. We'll need to review BrandOps access logs, he said. Sloane's head snapped up. Darius didn't intervene. That was new. At 11:56 a.m., legal added. And preserve all sandbox activity. Darius exhaled. Slow. Controlled. But his hands had unclasped. Small tells mattered now. At 12:01 p.m., Darius leaned back. Let's pause, he said. This has escalated. No, Mara Quinn replied. It's clarified. She stood. Not abruptly. Deliberately. I'm not asking for reinstatement today, she said. I'm asking for the record to reflect that the audio is under investigation. Legal nodded. Compliance nodded. HR scribbled. Darius said nothing. At 12:04 p.m., Mara Quinn added one final sentence. And if the record does not reflect that, my next clarification won't be internal. The room understood. This wasn't a threat. It was a schedule. She walked out. The door closed behind her. Not like a lock this time. Like an echo. Emotion convinces no one in power. Timelines do. At 4:47 p.m., the email went out. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet enough to feel surgical. Subject line. Update. Ongoing review. No names in the subject. That mattered. Mara Quinn read it twice while standing by her apartment window. The city below her, already preparing for evening. The language was careful. An internal review is underway regarding the authenticity of recently circulated audio. Access logs are being preserved. No conclusions have been reached. No apology. But something more important appeared. No employment action will be taken pending the outcome. They hadn't cleared her, but they'd stopped the bleeding. And in corporate life, stopping the bleeding means someone upstairs has started asking who caused it. At 5:03 p.m., Elliot Crane texted her one line. BrandOps access frozen. She closed her eyes. Not relief. Recognition. Freezes don't happen unless someone powerful is suddenly nervous. At 5:11 p.m., another message arrived. From Tessa, they pulled Sloane into a closed-door meeting. Compliance, legal. No HR. That detail mattered. HR handled optics. Legal handled survival. Compliance handled sacrifice. At 5:26 p.m., Mara Quinn poured herself a glass of water she didn't drink. She wasn't celebrating. She was listening, because consequences don't arrive all at once. They arrive in pieces. At 6:02 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. This is Darius Klein, the voice said. No greeting. No charm. Just control stripped down to bone. Yes, Mara Quinn replied. A pause. Longer than before. I'm offering you a path forward, Darius said. A clean one. She waited. You return to your role, he continued. We conclude the review internally. No statements. No further escalation. And the audio? Mara Quinn asked. It will be classified as unverified, he said. Inconclusive. Inconclusive. Not false. Not fabricated. Just. Inconvenient. And brand ops? She asked. Another pause. Sloan will take responsibility for procedural overreach, Darius said. She'll exit quietly. There it was. The sacrifice. One name to protect the structure. At 6:09 p.m., Mara Quinn spoke. If I return, she said, the record must state that the audio is fabricated. That's not something we can prove, Darius replied. It is, Mara Quinn said. You just don't want to. Silence. You're asking for a lot, Darius said. No, Mara Quinn replied. I'm declining a bad deal. His voice cooled. Think carefully, he said. This industry is small. So is trust, Mara Quinn said. And you spent yours already. The line went dead. She placed the phone down gently, like it no longer mattered. At 6:18 p.m., she opened her email again. A new message. Sender. Compliance. Subject. Request for follow-up. They weren't asking Darius anymore. That was the real consequence. At 9:41 a.m. the next morning, the second email went out. This one, shorter. This one clearer. Preliminary findings indicate the circulated audio does not meet standards of authenticity. The matter remains under investigation. Related access privileges have been revoked. No names. But names weren't needed anymore. By at 9:58 a.m., Sloane's calendar disappeared. By at 10:12 a.m., her profile photo vanished from the directory. No goodbye email. No farewell cake. Just absence. Corporate death is quiet. And intentional. At 10:37 a.m., Lena Hart messaged Mara Quinn. It's done, she wrote. They moved fast. Are you okay? Mara Quinn asked. I think so, Lena replied. I was reassigned. Reassigned. Not promoted. Not punished. Parked safely between storms. That means you did it right, Mara Quinn replied. A long pause. Then Lena wrote, Thank you for giving me a way out. Mara Quinn closed the message. She didn't reply. Some thanks are better left standing. At 1:22 p.m., Mara Quinn received the final call. This time, it wasn't Darius. It was the CEO. Her voice was measured. Professional. I want you back, she said. But not where you were. Mara Quinn listened. There's a new role opening, the CEO continued. Independent review. Direct reporting. Fewer friends. More protection. A lateral move disguised as armor. Power. Without popularity. And Darius? Mara Quinn asked. A pause. He'll remain, the CEO said. For now. For now. That was honest. Take the weekend, the CEO added. Decide. The call ended. At 1:34 p.m., Mara Quinn sat alone in her kitchen. Sunlight hit the counter like nothing in the world had changed. She thought about the badge, the building, the meetings, the version of herself who had once believed competence was enough. It never was. She opened her notebook and wrote 2 columns. Return. Leave. Under return, she wrote, access. Influence. Record corrected. Under leave, she wrote, freedom. Clean air. No more rooms, like 31B. She stared at the page. Then she folded it in half. Because the decision wasn't actually between staying and leaving. It was between being protected and being free. At 6:07 p.m., she sent one final email. Subject. Decision. Body. Thank you for the offer. I decline. Please confirm the record reflects that the audio was fabricated. After that, I'm done. She didn't sign it with her title, just her name. At 8:42 a.m. on Monday, the final update went out. Short. Unavoidable. The previously circulated audio has been determined to be fabricated. The matter is closed. No explanation. No apology. But the truth was there. On the record. Where it mattered. Mara Quinn read it once. Then closed her laptop. Outside, the city moved on. So did she. Because the real revenge wasn't staying to rule the room. It was leaving with your name intact and letting the room explain itself forever. The greatest revenge isn't staying to rule the room. It's leaving with your name intact. Power doesn't always destroy you by force. Sometimes, it fabricates a version of you and waits for others to believe it. Truth. In systems built on reputation, perception is often used as a weapon. In corporate wars, the loudest people are rarely the most dangerous. The real damage is done quietly through approvals, processes, and silence. Truth. What looks procedural is often intentional. Justice doesn't always mean winning your position back. Sometimes, it means leaving with your name clean, while the system is forced to live with itself. Truth. Integrity outlives authority.